Hello and welcome back to youtube.com. It's been a minute since I've done a video, but I received a nice package in the mail and wanted to hop on real quick, open it up with you, show you what's inside, and give you my thoughts on the book. So this is Secret Project number 2 by Brandon Sanderson from the largest and most successful Kickstarter of all time. First off, just really like this box and all the little inscriptions on it. And then on the inside, we have this quote from Wit. That seems like a very appropriate quote for this book, in keeping with the tone. It's quite silly, but it's pretty fun at the same time. So here we have the Frugal Wizard's Handbook for Surviving Medieval England. And then we have this dragon steel sticker, this little wizard sticker. We also have a awesome bookmark depicting a scene from the climax of the story. We won't get too much into spoilers on that. And also this pin of Vasher's, what I got. This will go nicely with my other pin of Vin from Secret Project number 1. I'm not sure quite how this works. I'm betting that these pins are kind of randomly assigned to everyone. It's just a game of chance which one you get, so hopefully I don't get any duplicates in the future. The book feels really nice. Really love the color scheme and the textures on the cover. Feels very similar to the quality of book 1. Tress of the Emerald Sea will go nicely together on the shelf. And just like Tress, there are some awesome illustrations throughout this book. I think these illustrations are even more impressive. There seems to be more of them, and they're just really high quality, really great. And then you'll notice here on the bottom of many of these pages are almost like these little drawings, these little sketches, almost like a comic strip. And this is a secret story that you can follow throughout the book. And also some great colored illustrations from scenes of the book throughout. Throughout the book, you also have these interludes of these frequently asked questions for the company that runs this interdimensional time travel experience that is present in this book. Overall, I'm really happy with the physical copy of this book. I think it's beautiful. It's gonna look really nice on the shelf. It feels great in the hands. And while the books are expensive, I'm happy that I purchased them. They're great works of art. They're really high quality. I've really enjoyed reading them as well. Before I go, I want to leave you with a couple of my thoughts on the book. I'll try my best to keep this as spoiler-free as possible, but I can't guarantee it. Something may slip in here or there, but you've been warned. If you haven't read the book, go read the book. It's really fun. It's great. Otherwise, you've been warned. This is a White Room book, similar to Andy Weir's Project Hail Mary, if you've read that, or if you're familiar with the Bourne Identity series. You have a character who wakes up. They don't remember anything. They don't remember who they are or how they got where they are. And this structure works really well for this book. Our character wakes up in medieval England, but it's like a pre-Christianity medieval England where there's still like tribes and Vikings, and the people are really superstitious, living in sort of this polytheistic society where they believe in these spirits and they kind of pay tribute to these spirits. It's a really interesting setting, really interesting world and people, not one that I've seen a lot of in fantasy, and especially not in science fiction. And this book really is a really good melding of science fiction and fantasy. The premise of this book reminds me of that saying that any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. That rings true for this book. Our main character, who shall remain nameless because he doesn't know his name at the beginning of the book, so perhaps that's a spoiler. He wakes up in a field near this village with these tribal people, and all he really has around him are exploded pages from this Frugal Wizard's Handbook. And from it, he learns that he is not in his world anymore. He hasn't exactly time traveled. He's more dimension hopped. He has gone to another dimension back in time to this medieval period. There are an infinite number of dimensions, and each of these dimensions are slightly different than our own. He's from the future, and in that future, there's this company that sells these dimensions to people so that they can go back in time, essentially, and live out their fantasy. Which is a really great idea, because who among us has not dreamt of going back in time and doing things a little bit differently, maybe playing the stock market and getting rich, or just viewing historical events and witnessing them for yourselves or meeting historical figures. This company allows people to do that. But the company is a little bit shady as well, and you read that in the FAQs and how they answer the questions, and it's really funny. But it also brings up a little bit of a moral dilemma, because usually when you time travel, you got to worry about ruining the future and ruining your own life and the world, or the butterfly effect, or if you've seen Back to the Future, you know how that might work out. But the idea of traveling to an alternate dimension, that kind of solves things a little bit, because then you don't have to worry so much about ruining your own future. You just might be ruining the future for someone else. The book doesn't get too much into that moral dilemma, but it kind of plays things in a lighter tone, but it's a lot of fun. And this is probably the most Terry Pratchett-esque of Sanderson's books. It's nothing like Terry Pratchett at the same time, but it's probably the closest Sanderson has ever gotten to doing something Terry Pratchett-y. And when people go through these other dimensions into different times, they also have in their bloodstream these nanites that enable them to heal rapidly from injuries and prevents them from getting sick, getting any infections or diseases from these, other lands that they're going to be in. And it also enhances their abilities, which underscores that kind of theme of sufficiently advanced technology being indistinguishable from magic. And as I'm reading this book, I'm just think to myself, man, it'd be so cool to have those nanites. I wish I had them. Overall, I really enjoyed this story. I really enjoyed the characters. I really loved the juxtaposition of our main character and this kind of more stoic leader of the medieval tribe that he runs into. Because our main character, he's always running away from his problems, and this other character that he pairs up with, he never backs down from a problem. Also really loved the character of Cephawin, and kind of not so much like a faith crisis as a little bit of like an imposter syndrome identity crisis, where she's trying to, honor her people's ways, but she still doesn't completely understand them or feel like she is really fulfilling her role. She's not really quite sure what she believes herself. Really interesting dynamic between these three characters. I would say that it's about on par, in my opinion, with Tress of the Emerald Sea, which I may be in the minority here, because if you look on Goodreads, Tress of the Emerald Sea is ranked like 4.54 stars out of 5, which is quite high. That's higher than a lot of Mistborn books, but not quite as high as some Stormlight Archive books. In my opinion, that might be just a tad too high. Frugal Wizard's Handbook is rated 3.82 stars out of 5. That's like 3/4 of a point in difference here, which I kind of get a little bit, right? Because I'm kind of in the camp where I really enjoy Brandon Sanderson's Cosmere books a lot, and his non-Cosmere books not so much. But I do think that the Frugal Wizard's Handbook is his best non-Cosmere book. And were it to become a series, I would definitely pick up the next installment. There's so much you could do with this idea of dimension hopping, whether or not you follow these same characters or you introduce some new characters going into a different time and meeting other people and places. As I'm editing this video, I just wanted to interject again and say that on the most recent episode of Intentionally Blank, Brandon and Dan talked about how they may actually do some sequels to the Frugal Wizard's Handbook, so I'm really excited about that.
Our bad story idea is Titanic 2 Sink Harder. This was the inspiration for, I actually have it here, Secret Project 2. The idea spun off into Anglo-Saxon England. I still think someday you and I might write Titanic 2 Sink Harder in the reality show sort of way.
Expand upon the Frugal world.
Yep.
There's so much potential for a series here, and I would definitely pick up the next installment. Usually what Brandon Sanderson's fans tend to really like about his books are not just the worlds he builds or the magic systems or the characters or all that stuff, but what they really love are the endings. Brandon Sanderson has a tendency to give you a great ending. And the endings of the first 2 secret projects, in my opinion, not quite so satisfying. They feel a little bit rushed, a little bit too neat and tidy, and the villains were forgettable. It's interesting with these secret projects is that they're really strong in world building. They're solid in characters. They're really fun and lighthearted adventures. Where they kind of fall short for me is in the villains and the endings. Both projects I felt were kind of weak in that regard. But overall, I've really enjoyed both of these books. I'm happy I've purchased them and participated in the Kickstarter. They're really nice pieces of art to have in my home, and I've really enjoyed reading them. I highly recommend them to other people. If you haven't read them, go pick up a copy. But what did you think? Have you read any of the secret projects? What have you thought? Did you read the Frugal Wizard's Handbook? Did you like it more or less than Tress of the Emerald Sea? What worked for you in the story? What didn't work? I would love to hear from you. Let me know in the comments below. Hope to see you back here soon. Just wanted to interject here, talk about the elephant in the room. I am super late to getting this video up. I recorded it last week, but the copy of my book really only came a few days before Secret Project 3 came out. So nothing I could really do about that. But better late than never, right?